Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Dolan. Welcome once again to another edition of Wisconsin Icons. My title sponsor is Pasternak and Zergabel, award-winning injury attorneys, and you can find their help at www.injurywisconsin.com. My icon in this episode is Tom Loftus. And for a couple of reasons, if you're my age or even a little older, a little younger, you'll certainly remember Tom Loftus from his political days in Madison. He served for about 15 years in the Assembly. He served as Speaker of the Assembly for 9 years. And that was an era when politicians actually worked together. Imagine that. Because during the Loftus days, when he was Speaker, the Democrats controlled the Assembly, and a Republican, Tommy Thompson, was the governor. And yet they got beyond that. And often they would work into the night, and often they would compromise and debate and discuss and argue over dinner and drinks. But yet every time they would come out with some sort of compromise that was palatable to most everyone in Wisconsin. So those were the days with Tom Loftus, Tommy Thompson, and others that politics seemed to work certainly a lot better than they do now. So that's one reason that Tom Loftus is an icon. The other reason, though, is when he left Wisconsin politics, he was appointed as ambassador, United States ambassador to Norway by Bill Clinton. And he served in Norway for 4 years. In fact, Tom has a book coming out in the very near future about his 4 years in Norway. So I'm very happy to say hello on Wisconsin Icons to former Speaker of the Assembly, Tom Loftus. And there he is. He's looking good. Tom Loftus, hello. Welcome to Wisconsin Icons. It's nice to see you.
Oh, nice to be seen. A pleasure to be with you.
Are you feeling good, Tom? I mean, I know you're in your upper 70s now. You look good. How you feeling?
I'm feeling very good. I guess I'm that rare person that don't have too many ailments at all.
Very good. You're aging far better than me. I'll grant you that. Before we turn to Norway, Tom, and that's going to be a fascinating 4 years of your life. If you don't mind, I hope I don't sound like the old man in the room who always looks back on how it used to be and think, oh, those were the days. But I think with politics, I'm right, that those were the days back in your day when the years that you were Speaker and the years that the Democrats controlled the Assembly, and yet you had to work with a Republican governor, Tommy Thompson. It just seems to me as an observer that back then you found a way to make it work. And today you sure can't say that. So I wonder, Tom, if you ever look back on how it used to be and compare it to politics today, and do you look back with regret, with dismay? I mean, where do you come on from at that point of view about politics today, especially?
Well, you're right about the old days. They were good, and if one word can put it in focus, the word is friendship. We were friends in the legislature, and those people that I served with, Tommy Thompson, and 5 governors, some of who passed away, are my friends today on both sides of the aisle. And it's hard to be mean or angry or accusatory when someone is your friend. We would socialize together. That was very important to form a friendship that was outside the political arena of the legislature. There were very nice people. Marty Schreiber, Lee Dreyfus, Tony Earl, Tommy Thompson, and I even served with Pat Lucy. These were very nice people, and they got along. And they didn't see the next vote or the next election as the end of the world, whether they won it or lost it. I always accused Tommy Thompson of being a good governor because he wanted every vote. You know, he didn't want to offend anybody.
Well, some years you get pretty close to that.
Well, it darn near got pretty
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
You're right. And I owe him a debt of gratitude that I didn't win. Both of our lives went on to be just terrific experiences, and we see each other quite often. And when he was the president of the University of Wisconsin system, he hired me as his advisor on policy. This was part-time. And so we worked together for a year, one more time in our dotage.
Just what, again, I'm not going to harp on the old days, but it seems as if all of you who were elected back then, both sides of the aisle, it seems like you entered that position with almost an obligation to the voter to get things done. That was your job. You were elected to do these things. And today, I don't sense that obligation. Today, it's all about me. And it's all about how can I win the next election? And do you sense that too, that even just the politician's outlook today is far different than it was in your day?
I'm quite amazed at the votes that are taken today and the statements that are made are contrary to what the voters of the individual districts would feel needs to be the role of the state representative or state senator. And it was very much that the 99 members of the assembly and the 33 members of the state senate had in their front of their mind their districts. Mm-hmm. In other words, how would this affect my school district? What about the roads in my district? How does this fit in with the people that I represent need? And when you come to it with that attitude, all of those things are taken into account, and you throw them into a mixing bowl, and you come out with a cake. And it's the job, especially the job of the speaker, mm-hmm. to pass a budget, and to pass a budget on time, and to not have at the time my personal ideology or anything like that in as important. My job was to pass that budget, although perhaps I couldn't choke down some of it, mm-hmm. but that was my job, and we did it.
See, I think I've proven right. Those were the good old days. Just yes. If you can, this is unfair, give me a one-word answer. If I were to say politics today is blank.
Unrepresentative.
Excellent. Let's move to Norway. Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. These are quite good there.
Right. So when you left Wisconsin politics, Tom, all of a sudden, not a couple of years later, you get a call from President Bill Clinton about becoming the U.S. ambassador to Norway. Where does this even come from? I mean, did this hit you out of the blue? Did you have a good personal relationship with the president? How does that start?
Well, there was one prophetic moment. I was in a debate when Tommy and I ran against each other for governor, and we were asked one of the boilerplate questions: "Would you serve out your term?"
Right.
And I said, yes, except if I were nominated to be ambassador to Norway.
Oh, you said that, yeah?
Yeah, it wasn't in my script. It wasn't some line that would, I just said it.
Yeah.
I was a rare legislative leader of either party in the United States, is that I participated in presidential primary campaigns. In other words, I chose someone. Yeah. And usually speakers and others, they don't want to choose. But I had been in presidential campaigns since 1976, had been going to conventions. And in primary campaigns, the people involved are almost all volunteers. And you see these people over and over again. I saw Clinton. I brought him to Stevens Point, to the Democratic Convention, the year It was 1986, 2 years before the '88 election. And he gave a speech which became known as the speech. And this was a vision of a new, more centrist Democratic Party focused on the economy. And he was young. Mm-hmm. And unbelievably from Arkansas. Mm-hmm. I mean, the rarity of this ever happening was quite. So I said to him, well, if you ever run for president, give me a call. Well, he gave me a call. And I chaired his campaign in Wisconsin. We got to know each other very well. And I had told him this happened in the parking garage of the Milwaukee Area Technical College after a debate he had. I said, if you're going to be president, and I'm going to go with you. And this is how politicians talk. And he said, I think that's a good idea. They never answer yes or no, but that was pretty close. So after the election, I let it be known that I wanted to be named ambassador to Norway, and that was it. I didn't say, oh, it would be nice to be in your administration. It would be nice to be an ambassador, or think of me. So I went to the White House, the Oval Office, February of 1993. He had only been inaugurated a month earlier. And we were there, just the two of us. He showed me, well, this is where the Nixon tapes were. This is my medicine cabinet where my asthma medicine is. The president's desk here is called the Resolute. It was a gift from Queen Victoria. And I said to him, I want to be appointed ambassador to Norway.
I don't care about your desk, Mr. Clinton.
I mean, it's a very nice thing.
Yeah.
Well, he had been prepped for this question.
Sure.
And after I left, it was just the two of us. He wrote on my file, not a bad idea, which pretty much is, go ahead and vet this person, and I'll do it. Well, a staff person read it as saying, no, a bad idea. Oh. His wretched handwriting was not known to these new people. Finally, someone who had been with him in Arkansas got my file and read it the right way, meaning not a bad idea. Let's go for it. I got back on the track.
So whoever saw the penmanship first mistook the not for a no.
Yes.
No, a bad idea, when it was really not a bad idea.
Right.
That's crazy. And that's all it takes is for somebody to march around saying, I want to be ambassador to Norway. Heck, I'll say right now, I want to be ambassador to Ireland.
It takes a little more. It takes a little more than that.
Yeah.
I was well suited for the post of Norway with Norwegian heritage. Typically, ambassadors from Minnesota and Wisconsin have been appointed ambassador to Norway for ever since it was a country in 1905. My predecessor was from Milwaukee, Lorette Miller-Rupe, who had been the head of the Peace Corps under Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
There were several other ambassadors from Milwaukee, from Wisconsin and Minnesota, and I was the longest serving speaker in Wisconsin history. I was very used to being in charge, and I was very used to being responsible, and I had learned to love ambiguity. In other words, I was going somewhere to be a professional friend. Nothing would be black and white. It would be the most interesting time of the 20th century if you were looking for a period of peace and change.
All right.
The Soviet Union is gone. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, the other Eastern European states are free. The Baltic states are free. Yeltsin is the president of Russia. There's a chance to have a new relationship with Russia. Norway has a border with now Russia. Formerly, it was a border with the Soviet Union. And this is where all the nuclear missiles and submarines that were aimed at us in America for, should the case come for annihilation, that's where they all are. So it was important that we deal with the ambassador to Norway as someone to do relations with Russia on the Norwegian border. And this is very much what the Norwegians wanted the Americans to do.
This was also a time period, Tom, if my memory serves me correct, where NATO is also expanding. So add that to the list of all the things you just mentioned. So it's not like you're going to Norway to speed skate and have dinner. You've got a long list of things that need to be checked up on. And does that intimidate you, Tom? I mean, you're coming from Madison, Wisconsin, and Madison, Wisconsin has their share of problems and challenges, of course, but now you're on the world stage. And now you're dealing with Yeltsin and all the others. I mean, were you at least a little bit intimidated in the early months?
No. And I'll tell you why. My experience, I'd flunked out of college and been drafted and spent 2 years in the Army. And that experience, plus my learning of the world academically at the University of Wisconsin, plus travel. I was someone you would call well-traveled.
Okay.
And in fact, when the FBI came to investigate me for the vetting, I had to produce a list of every country I had visited and the dates since I was 18 years old. And it was quite an amazing long list. I'd been to Norway several times. I'd been to Germany many times. And I had been to China shortly after it opened up for Americans. I'd been to Taiwan. I'd been to Nicaragua at the start of the Sandinista and Contra war. So I wasn't intimidated. And I think it's partly, I was young. The president was young. Everybody was young.
Yeah.
And I know Henry Kissinger came as a guest. Even he was young. So I tell the story in my book that of Kissinger coming as a private citizen, but you're never a private citizen after you've been what he has been. Yeah. And you're never a private citizen really after you've been an American ambassador. You have the title for life. And he was very adamant in his sense of history of the time that now is not the time to feel all cozy. You can expand NATO to Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic, and you better do it now. You can't wait. History suggests you cannot wait until things get better. He said, this is the best they're going to get. The Norwegians very much wanted this. They didn't want to be the only member of NATO with a border with Russia. They wanted friends. They particularly would like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, just recently free countries, in NATO, because this helped with their security. Norway's security is guaranteed by the United States, period. Okay, it's the United States within NATO, but it's the United States that we are the ones that have bases throughout the country for F-16s to land if there's an invasion. We have the Marines dedicated to the defense of Norway. We're the only game in town. At the time, we were the only game in all of Europe.
Okay.
So I wasn't intimidated, and I think I had a good background.
So you're certainly, Tom, any ambassador would certainly be receptive to suggestions from a guy like Henry Kissinger. But do you also lean on the other ambassadors in Europe? Is this a constant channel of communication between you and the surrounding countries of here's what's working, here's what's not, here's what we need to do, et cetera?
We met all the time together as NATO ambassadors. Only twice did we meet as ambassadors from all the European countries.
Okay.
We compared notes. We went to each other's capitals. We discussed. We had cables that went around the area. The other person was Richard Holbrooke, a diplomat's diplomat, and one who was a forceful person who wanted the expansion of NATO. When I arrived, he was the U.S. ambassador to Germany. Mm-hmm. We became close friends. He went on to be the Undersecretary of State, came to Norway often, many times, at the time pursuing peace in the Balkans, but also pursuing the Nobel Peace Prize, which is given in Norway. And I report in the book our campaign for the Peace Prize for him. Now, this is not something you're supposed to campaign for, mm-hmm. but there are ways. Mm-hmm. And it gives a good example in the book of what an ambassador does. Vice President Gore plays a significant role in foreign policy during these years. And Donna Shalala, who was the former chancellor at UW-Madison, is now the head of Health and Human Services in Washington. She plays a significant role as well when it comes to the fact that the United States would like the Norwegian Prime Minister, Gro Harlem Brundtland, when she leaves office, to be our candidate to head the World Health Organization. And there is this campaign for that. The other person is Madeleine Albright, who starts off as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations in New York, and then becomes Secretary of State. We had known each other from the 1988 campaign for president when Dukakis was the nominee for the Democrats. She was his foreign policy spokesman. She came to Wisconsin to campaign, and I picked her up at the airport. And we drove to Janesville, and we met with the Auto Workers Union. They were all assembled, the members of the UAW. And I said, what in the world are we going to tell these people about foreign policy to make it so they get excited about Dukakis? And my only advice to her is be for American cars. Other than that, go for it. And she said to them, you know, you're sitting here standing on the shoulders of Walter Reuther, the former head of the UAW, who was the constant fighter for independence in Poland and of communism. You're also looking at free Poland because it was a union worker that did it. That's why you should get out and tell your members to vote for Dukakis. It was spellbinding. And so she did good.
Tom, you're running in some pretty big circles back in the day, aren't you? Albright and Clinton and Kissinger and all the other Holbrooke. And I mean, you're keeping pretty good company. What was your relationship like with the leadership of Norway?
Well, you're sent to a country to be a professional friend. And if you can't do that, you should leave. Very close relationship with the prime minister. In fact, after I left, she hired me as an advisor for her when she headed the World Health Organization in Geneva. Their Majesties, the King and Queen, became quite good friends through shared experiences. Mm-hmm. The King is the head of state. The Prime Minister is the head of government. So the King is more like the President of the United States, but more ceremonial.
Okay.
But still very involved in diplomacy. So I traveled with them on their first ever state visit to the United States, and to have a state dinner in the White House, a very unique state dinner. We started off the trip in New York, where I danced with the Queen at the Waldorf Astoria. You never know what talents you need to bring to bear when you're an ambassador.
What, are we going to see you next on Dance with the Stars or what? Tom, I can sense it, as you recollect. I can just sense in your presentation and your voice how much pride you have in this era, these 4 years of your life. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. And it was a delight, and it was a delight to write my memoirs. Which
tell me a little bit about what's the title of the book, and it's coming out in a few months, right? Springtime.
Springtime, I hope, maybe October, but it's called Mission to Oslo: Dancing with the Queen and Dealing with the Russians.
And I'm sure it's full of just anecdotes and accomplishments and some of your fine Norwegian wit. So I'm sure it's going to be has it been a great experience just to write it?
It has. It took 3 years. I could just continue to write and you know, and not worry about publish.
I can't wait for the book to come out, Tom, because I just love stories like this. Most of us do, just kind of the behind the curtain stories, you know. And not only the amusing stories, but just the fact that how much you all accomplished and how it came to be. So, Tom, you've always been a delight to speak with and to be with. And I appreciate your time on Wisconsin Icons. And I thank you for your service, not only in the legislature, but in Norway. So thanks so much, Tom. It's always good to see you.
Thank you very much.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.